Welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. So, in our previous explainer, we went over navigating Solana resources and next steps. But today we're pivoting right back to the foundational bedrock of Web3. We are diving into a crucial part of our Bitcoin fundamentals track, specifically within the Introduction to the Bitcoin White Paper course. Today's explainer is all about mining fundamentals in the Bitcoin network. We're going to tackle that core mystery of the Bitcoin architecture. Where do these blocks actually come from? We hear the word mining all the time, right? And it's usually framed as this super mysterious background process. I think a lot of people literally picture tiny digital pickaxes or just these dark, massive warehouses full of humming computers. And hey, to be fair, that second one isn't entirely wrong when it comes to the hardware, but conceptually, what's actually going on under the hood? Well, in this explainer, we're going to look at the exact blueprints. We're going to completely demystify this process and see how it practically enforces these somewhat abstract rules of Nakamoto consensus and chain selection. So here's our schematic overview for today. We're going to hit 5 main points. First, the purpose of mining. Then, building a candidate block. Third, the Great Bitcoin Lottery. Fourth, broadcasting the winning ticket. And finally, number 5, the economics of mining. Let's pull mining out of that cryptographic black box and put it into a concrete, easy-to-understand lifecycle. Okay, jumping right into section 1, the purpose of mining or the blueprint of security. So why does the network even need this massive expenditure of energy just to process transactions? The answer absolutely lies in proof of work. Now, I want you to think of proof of work not as some crazy complex math, but as a verifiable scar of effort. It's kind of like, imagine carving an intricately detailed wooden sculpture, right? It takes hours of sweat, tears, and probably a few splinters. But anyone walking by can look at it for just 1 second and know undeniably that it took real work to make. In Bitcoin, this verifiable proof serves as the absolute single source of truth. Moving on to section 2, building a candidate block, which is basically drafting the blueprint. Before anything becomes permanent on the chain, a miner has to draft what's called a candidate block. And this specification sheet maps out the exact 5-stage loop that every single miner on the network is constantly repeating. First up, candidate construction. They grab unconfirmed transactions to build the block. Second, nonce iteration. They change mutable fields and hash the candidate to try and solve the puzzle. Third, block discovery. If they get lucky, they find a hash below the target and broadcast it. Fourth, validation, where peers check the proof of work and validity. And finally, propagation, where miners accept it and start building the next one. It is a relentless, continuous loop. The really crucial point to take away here is that this candidate block is not final. It's literally just a snapshot of state. It is not carved in stone yet. The miner is endlessly modifying this draft, desperately searching for the perfect mathematical combination that will win the network's approval. It's basically a draft document just sitting there, waiting for a very specific, incredibly rare winning serial number. Which brings us to section 3, the Great Bitcoin Lottery, or the engine of discovery. This search for that perfect mathematical combination operates exactly like a giant repeating lottery. And to buy a ticket in this lottery, miners simply change a specific number in the block's header. That number is called a nonce. You can think of it just like a serial number on a scratch-off ticket. They guess a nonce, they do the math, and they see if they won. Didn't win? No problem. Change the nonce, guess again. And when that runs out, they tweak timestamps and other data to get effectively unlimited new tickets. So miners methodically iterate through this exact workflow. Step 1, hash the candidate block. Step 2, compare that hash to the network's target odds. Step 3, if it failed, and spoiler alert, it almost always does, alter the nonce and repeat. They do this over and over and over again, just hoping their ticket matches the target odds. And they aren't just doing this a few dozen times. The scale of effort here is wonderfully absurd. We're talking billions upon billions of lottery tickets being purchased every single second. Miners are spending real-world energy, massive amounts of electricity, just to guess a random number that satisfies the network's difficulty target. All right, section 4, broadcasting the winning ticket, also known as the network flood. Once a miner finally hits the jackpot, the race isn't actually over. They have to immediately shout bingo to the entire network. And this brilliantly illustrates the system's core asymmetry. Remember that wooden sculpture analogy? Creating a winning block, actually hashing it, is incredibly expensive and requires massive energy and computational time. But validating that the miner actually won the lottery, that is practically free. It's cheap, fast, and incredibly easy. Any standard laptop running a node can just instantly look at the winning ticket and say, yep, the math checks out. But here is a super fascinating wrinkle. What happens when two miners on completely opposite sides of the planet shout bingo at the exact same time? Because network latency is a real thing and the globe is huge, it takes time for information to travel, right? So sometimes two perfectly valid blocks are broadcast simultaneously, which creates a temporary split, or fork, in the chain. Check out this timeline. At second 0, we get that simultaneous discovery. Then, for the next 10 seconds or so, we have a network split. Half the network thinks miner A1 and half thinks miner B1. So how does it get fixed? Well, minutes later, the chain selection rule steps in when the next block is found. Whichever side finds that next block first creates the longest chain, and the resolution is always that the longest chain wins. This, by the way, is exactly why you wait for multiple confirmations on your own transactions. You want to be absolutely sure your transfer is buried deep in that winning chain. And that brings us to our final section, number 5, the economics of mining, funding the engine. Let's see how economic reality incentivizes miners to play this incredibly difficult game, because let's face it, nobody burns millions of dollars in electricity just for fun. Rational actors are driven by a few key things. They want to earn those lucrative block subsidy rewards, the newly minted Bitcoin, and they want to collect the transaction fees. To keep doing that, they have to constantly outpace the competing hash rate. It's literally an arms race of computational power, all while trying to smooth out their risk and variance. But there is a huge catch here. For an individual miner, the variance is incredibly high. A single miner with a few machines might statistically only win the lottery once every 10 years. That's super unpredictable income. So to actually pay the electric bills, miners group their lottery tickets together into mining pools. By aggregating their hash rate, they smooth out that harsh variance and get steady, fractional payouts every single time the pool wins. So the big takeaway here is that mining pools are not some protocol requirement hard-coded into Bitcoin. Not at all. They emerge purely as an economic response to probabilistic variance. It's just a rational risk-smoothing technique. It redistributes the network's massive winnings based on exactly how many tickets or how much hash power each individual miner contributed to the pool. And that brings us to a really provocative thought to leave you with today. If pooling requires centralized coordination to smooth out this variance, does the economic reality of the lottery ultimately threaten the decentralized nature of the network itself? It's a massive debate, and it continues to shape the ecosystem today. We highly encourage you to explore the answer by visiting forge.college. Dive deeper into the subject, check out our module on Bitcoin mining and incentives, and explore all our other fascinating Web3 courses. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next explainer.